Chosen ones, 5 signs you're a late awakener with a major mission. There's a sacred path that doesn't begin at birth. It doesn't even begin in your 20s. It begins later, sometimes much later, when the world has already tried to mold you, when the noise of life has dulled your intuition, and when you've fallen deep enough into the illusion to finally question everything. This is the path of the late awakeners. The ones who didn't grow up talking to spirits or knowing they were different from day one. The ones who went through the motions, tried to be normal, tried to make sense of a world that always seemed just a little off. If that's you, this message is not just about you. It is you, because the late awakeners are often the most powerful chosen ones. Not because they woke up late, but because they woke up deep. You see, when you awaken later in life, after most people have settled into roles, routines, and beliefs, you don't just awaken softly, you awaken like a thunderclap. It shakes everything, it burns away what no longer serves, and it doesn't ask for permission. You suddenly realize you've been sleepwalking, you've been living someone else's plan, and the moment you recognize that, something ancient inside you stirs, something that's been waiting, watching, whispering from the shadows. That's your soul. That's your mission. And it's not random that it waited. The delay was part of the design.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Let me ask you something right now, something only your soul can answer. Have you ever felt like you were supposed to be doing something big, but you just couldn't figure out what it was? Like you were circling some invisible truth, almost able to touch it, but never quite able to bring it into form. That's the energy of a late awakener. You were being prepared, and the signs were always there, even if you didn't know how to read them. The universe was speaking to you in symbols, in pain, in synchronicities that felt like glitches in the matrix. You weren't crazy, you were coded. The first sign that you're a late awakener with a major mission is that your past doesn't match your power. You look back at your life and wonder how someone like you could have gone through so much confusion, so much misalignment, so many detours, and yet here you are, waking up into something that feels too big to explain. That's because your soul needed the contrast. It needed to taste the illusion so it could embody the truth. Your past wasn't wasted, it was a forge. Every heartbreak, every loss, every dead-end job or toxic relationship was shaping your frequency. You were learning the terrain of the human experience so that when you finally woke up, you could walk others through it, not from theory, but from embodied knowing. The second sign is that you've always had an inner observer, a part of you that watched your life unfold like a movie. Even before you had language for it, there was a piece of you that never fully bought into the script. That part of you is the soul self. It's the eternal witness. And when you awaken late, that part comes online with such clarity that it's almost disorienting. You start seeing through people, through systems. You recognize patterns instantly. You can sense deception in the subtlest ways. This isn't paranoia, this is perception. And it's a spiritual gift that was dormant until now because you needed to develop the maturity to wield it responsibly. The third sign is that your awakening came through pain, not a gentle nudge, but a collapse, a breakdown, a dark night of the soul that forced you to stop running from yourself, Late awakeners often go through a spiritual earthquake that shatters everything they thought was real. Careers fall apart, relationships end, health deteriorates, and in the rubble you begin to see the truth. You weren't being destroyed, you were being stripped of expectations, of lies, of everything that wasn't you, because your mission required you to be pure, clean of conditioning, empty enough to be filled with something divine. The fourth sign is a sudden, almost obsessive hunger for truth. You start devouring spiritual books, watching hours of content, meditating for the first time in your life, and wondering why it hits so deep. You feel like you're catching up, but in reality you're downloading. Your soul is remembering at warp speed. You're receiving blueprints, codes, insights that seem far beyond your previous understanding. You might even feel like you're going crazy, because how can all this be true when no one around you sees it? That's because you're being set apart. You're not meant to blend in. You're meant to rise. And the fifth sign, the most powerful one, is that you feel called to serve, even if you don't know how. There's a quiet ache in your chest that says, I'm here for something more. You might not know what it looks like yet, but you can feel it. And once that feeling awakens, it never sleeps again. You begin to sense that your life is no longer just yours, that your experiences were not random, that your pain has become a portal, and your voice, a voice you may have silenced for decades, is starting to tremble with power, because it's no longer just yours. It's the voice of truth, of memory, of mission. So if you're waking up late, know this: you're not behind. You're right on time, because the universe doesn't rush power, it perfects it. And the chosen ones who awaken late are often the ones who walk with the heaviest keys, keys that unlock healing, activation, and awakening for others. You weren't born to follow the timeline of the world, you were born to rewrite it. Why the universe delayed your awakening, the hidden training of late-blooming souls. There's a divine intelligence behind every delay, every detour, every moment you thought you were falling behind while others soared ahead. If you are a chosen one who awakened later in life, it wasn't because you were forgotten, it's because you were being refined. The universe does not waste time, it prepares souls, especially those who are meant to do something extraordinary on earth. You weren't late, you were being seasoned, and the seasoning was sacred. While others were building lives that looked successful on the surface, you were being taught how to feel what others ignore. You were placed in situations that broke you open, not because you were weak, but because your soul needed to learn how to navigate darkness without losing its light. You were given pain, not as punishment, but as preparation, because your calling requires you to hold space for others who are drowning in their own storms. And how could you do that if you hadn't first learned to breathe underwater? There's something about the late awakeners that is different. We don't just wake up and post quotes, we wake up burning with questions, with rage, with love, with the ache of truth that we can no longer ignore. And that fire wasn't lit by accident. It was lit by everything we endured. The betrayals that shattered our trust, the emptiness of achieving things that never fulfilled us, the confusion of feeling like we didn't fit anywhere. Every single one of those experiences was part of your hidden training. You were being taught how to walk through fire and come out glowing. You see, the universe waited because it needed to make sure you could hold the weight of your mission. And that weight isn't just about doing great things. It's about being a great presence. There's a difference. You can build success with strategy, but you can only carry destiny with substance. And substance is born through contrast. Through the years you felt invisible, through the moments you were overlooked, through the days when you questioned your sanity, your worth, your very existence. Let me ask you something that goes deeper than the surface. What if the pain you thought was delaying you was actually etching wisdom into your soul? What if the relationships that broke you were actually teaching you how to recognize real connection? What if the years you spent lost were actually sacred wandering, guiding you away from the noise so you could finally hear your own voice? That's the hidden training. It doesn't happen in classrooms. It happens in the quiet agony of nights where you wonder if you'll ever feel whole again. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still searching, still becoming. The late awakeners often carry the codes of the old souls. We've done this before, in other lifetimes, in other dimensions. That's why nothing in this world has ever fully satisfied us. We've tasted truth before, and we recognize it when it returns. And when it does, it hits like lightning. You start remembering things you've never been taught. You start seeing through illusions you once believed in. You feel like your soul is catching up to itself, fast, like it's been waiting behind a locked door and suddenly someone handed you the key. This is the spiritual acceleration that happens after late awakening. Once you're ready, you don't crawl, you catapult. You grow in months what takes others years. You shed lifetimes of pain in a single realization. You start aligning so quickly that your old life crumbles around you. And yes, it's terrifying, but it's also liberating. Because you're finally living in truth, and truth doesn't require permission. And perhaps the most sacred part of this hidden training is that it cultivated your compassion. You know what it's like to feel lost, to feel unworthy, to feel disconnected from your purpose. And that knowing becomes your gift. You won't just teach others how to heal, you'll walk with them. You won't just speak light, you'll carry it into the darkest places without fear. Because you've been there, you've survived there, and that makes you powerful beyond measure. So the next time you feel behind, remember this: the universe doesn't delay awakening, it times it, precisely, perfectly, and your time is now, not a moment sooner, because now your heart is strong enough, your mind is clear enough, your soul is anchored enough to do what you came here to do. And it's not too late. It's right on time. The sacred assignment: why late awakeners hold the blueprint for humanity's shift. There's a powerful truth that most people never realize. The souls who awaken late are not here to catch up. They're here to lead. And not just in the traditional sense of leadership, but in the most profound, invisible, and soul-shaking way. Late awakeners are the ones who carry the blueprint. They are the ones who walk into a chaotic, disoriented world and bring a vibration that realigns it, not with noise, but with presence, not with force, but with frequency. If you're someone who's woken up after years or even decades of living half asleep, unsure why you couldn't settle into the life everyone else seemed content with, know this: you didn't come here to fit in. You came here to recalibrate the system from within. You see, timing is everything. The world is in a state of radical transformation. Old structures are crumbling, truth is rising, and confusion is everywhere. It's easy to look around and feel disheartened, but look again, feel deeper. Underneath the noise, something sacred is unfolding. New energies are emerging. New ways of living, thinking, and being are being downloaded into those who are open. And who is more open than the one who has been broken, humbled, and emptied by years of misalignment? That's why the late awakeners are so vital. Your life didn't begin in spiritual awareness because your soul chose to experience the depth of disconnection, so that when you finally remembered, you would bring a level of clarity, compassion, and wisdom that only comes from having walked both worlds. You understand the illusion because you lived in it. You understand the pain because it almost consumed you, and now you've emerged with eyes that see beyond the veil. That is not weakness, that is sacred training. That is the assignment. Let me ask you something few people dare to confront. What if the very things you've been running from, your past, your confusion, your years of feeling lost, are actually the credentials your soul needed to fulfill its mission? What if your journey through darkness was not a mistake, but a map, one that would later help you guide others home? Because here's the thing, people don't need another guru on a pedestal, they need someone who remembers the way back, because they've been lost themselves, and that someone is you. The sacred assignment of the late awakener is not to shout louder, but to vibrate more clearly. When your frequency is aligned, your presence becomes a healing field. You don't even have to speak. People feel it. They soften around you. They remember themselves. You become a mirror, not of who they are pretending to be, but of who they really are. And that mirroring is not accidental. It's your gift. Your sacred task is to anchor truth in a world full of distortion, to be still in a world addicted to movement, to be deep in a world obsessed with surfaces, to be awake when most are still dreaming. But here's the paradox. This assignment will never feel like a job. It will feel like a calling. And once it starts taking root in you, it becomes impossible to ignore. You'll find yourself pulled towards certain people, places, and experiences without knowing why. You'll feel an invisible hand guiding you, redirecting you, aligning every cell of your being with something you can't quite explain. That's destiny. That's divine orchestration. That's a sacred assignment taking over. And you're not alone. All over the world, late awakeners are rising, quietly, steadily, powerfully. We are not here to build empires of ego. We are here to build sanctuaries of soul. We are here to remind humanity of what it forgot, that life is sacred, love is real, truth is non-negotiable, and time is an illusion. We are the ones who will whisper when the world shouts, who will stand tall when others fall, who will hold light when the night gets dark. This is not about fame. This is not about followers. This is about frequency. It's about aligning so deeply with your soul that your very existence becomes an act of service. It's about becoming so intimate with truth that anything that isn't real simply falls away. And when that happens, you won't need to force your purpose into the world. It will flow through you naturally, like breath, like rhythm, like destiny unfolding in real time. So, if you've ever wondered why you didn't wake up sooner, stop wondering. You woke up exactly when you were meant to. Not a moment too early, not a second too late. And now that you're awake, the real journey begins. A journey not of becoming someone new, but of remembering who you've always been. You're not too late. You're right on time, walking in power with no regret. There's a moment in every late awakener's journey where the weight of time threatens to crush the joy of the present. You may look back and feel the sting of regret, wondering how much more you could have created, lived, or loved if only you'd awakened sooner. But here's the truth that will free you if you let it. You were never late. You were being aligned. The universe doesn't operate on clocks. It operates on readiness. And your soul, no matter how long it took to rise, is now perfectly calibrated for the mission it chose before you were even born. Every second of your life has been leading you to this point. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every detour you thought was a dead end, it was all weaving you into someone who could carry the frequency of your calling. And now that you're here, awake and aware, you must walk forward with one hand open to the infinite future and the other releasing the past with grace. Regret is a heavy anchor, and it doesn't serve someone who's finally ready to fly. Let it go. You didn't miss the train. You are the train. Walking in power after a late awakening means you move differently. You carry wisdom that isn't found in books. It's carved into your experience. You don't need to prove anything because your presence speaks for itself. You don't need to rush because you understand divine timing. And you don't need to explain your path because your energy makes it clear. You are here with intention. That's what makes you unstoppable. You've already faced your own darkness and chosen to rise. That's a power few can claim. Let me ask you a question that may crack something wide open. What would your life look like if you stopped believing you were behind? If you truly trusted that this moment, right now, was the perfect moment to begin living with full soul authority, how would you speak? Who would you become? What would you create if you knew that the delay wasn't a punishment, but part of a divine choreography designed to make your impact undeniable? Because the truth is, the late awakeners are often the most potent forces of change. You don't waste time anymore. You don't chase what doesn't matter. You move with clarity, purpose, and fire. You've seen both sides, what it's like to live asleep and what it means to live awake. That duality gives you range. It gives you depth. And that depth is your superpower. No one can fake it. No one can replicate it. It's encoded in your energy. And now, everything changes. You begin to create from alignment, not ambition. You begin to serve from overflow, not obligation. You begin to love with a heart that's been broken open, not sealed behind walls of fear. You don't just talk about transformation. You are the transformation. Your presence becomes a permission slip for others to awaken, to heal, to remember. That's how powerful you are. So no, you are not too late. In fact, you are arriving exactly when the world needs you most. The chaos, the confusion, the collective unraveling, it's not a sign of doom. It's a call for those who carry the blueprint of truth to rise. And you, late awakener, carry that blueprint in your bones. You are not here to fit into the old world. You are here to birth the new one. From this point forward, walk with no regret. Speak with no hesitation. Love with no fear. The time for doubting yourself has expired. You've already lived through enough to know that your soul is real, your mission is valid, and your awakening, no matter when it came, was right on time. Now go, walk in power. The world is waiting for you to remember just how much light you've always carried.